Good morning. Welcome to ESL Revolution. I'm your content creator and professor, Dr. B. Today, as you might know from looking at my dress today, I'm dressed in the traditional style, I guess, in Korea of a funeral. The black jacket, the white shirt, black tie, black pants, black shoes, to signify a sense of honor and respect to the person who is fallen, who has passed away from whatever ailment or issue they might have. I've been to my fair share of funerals here in Korea over the last 15 years. Some have been more personal than others. Some have been family members of my wife. Some have been kind of extended family members or close friends of the family on my wife's side. Of course, my living in Korea, there would be no like deaths necessarily related to me personally in Korea because my family is back in Canada. But I'm doing this for a particular reason today. As many of you know, the events over the last week have caused an utter uproar and a rebellion against, and I say that word very deliberately, a rebellion against the status quo, a rebellion against the disenfranchisement of the African American community in the United States, the utter disregard that we all have in standing up for justice, or maybe not all, but many of us who are in places of comfort, let's say. And of course, I'm talking about the events in Minnesota that have galvanized an entire country, but more importantly, galvanized an entire community to stand up and say, we will not take this anymore. We will not accept the reality that we have been told to accept any longer. So, in some ways, there's very little that I can do being here in Korea to affect a change in this country or any other country for that matter. I have the luxury of being in a place and position that allows me a modicum of freedom, where I am not necessarily fearful for my life when I walk down the street or that sort of thing. Excuse me. It's still the morning time and coffee is still a good idea. I don't really know what to say necessarily. I've been reflecting a lot this week, keeping those reflections mostly to myself. My wife being so incredibly busy this week with students returning to school here in Korea after the coronavirus shutdown. I didn't even want to bring this up to her because I felt like the conversation that we could have about it would not necessarily would not necessarily be able to go into a good place, or it wouldn't be a constructive conversation between her and I. She is, of course, Korean. So I just decided to just keep things quiet. But you know, for you as students who are a part of this channel, I'm going to be posting this onto the Facebook page, of course, and up onto the YouTube channel. And if you, as students, I know that maybe you are not completely perhaps up to date with what is or isn't going on in the world, as we can become perhaps a little myopic in our vision in terms of when's my next assignment due, and I've got to get this. And of course, you all had individual presentations this week, and I know that you were working very diligently and hard with that. And so I understand that maybe this entire situation is not completely in your own mind at the time, and I totally understand that. It's the reality of your world. I get that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I would highly suggest going on to some foreign news sites. Depending, there's all sorts of different sites that you could go to. I would look at some fairly reputable ones, to be quite honest. And yes, I'm going to be left leaning in my associations with news, but I would look at BBC. I would look at Reuters, ProPublica. I would look at CNN. Those are all kind of left of center. If you want to go even more left, perhaps democracynow.org. Those are all places that I think you can get some really good exposition on what has happened, and some context of the situation, and the fact that this is George's death is not an outlying case, but in fact part of a systemic, historically systemic attack on African Americans in the country, and that the issue of race has never really gone away. It doesn't matter how many laws it seems have passed, the specter of enslavement of an entire people in the United States has never really been dealt with. That conversation has never really gone away. And to be quite honest, I don't think that conversation has really ever started, to be quite honest. I'm a history teacher by major, so I've had, interestingly enough, I've had conversations with people in my gaming community, for example, who have not because they are ignorant of the issues, but because they were perhaps misunderstood, or perhaps because they are of an ESL or EFL ability, their understanding, their nuance of the situation has been less than adequate. And so I've spent time correcting views about things that have happened, and so I've tried to do my part, but I got to admit that my part is not even considerable as a drop in the bucket. I know that that I try to do what's right for my kids, to teach them as best as I can, and so hopefully I've not failed on that part. Given the fact that my kids are biracial, this is an important conversation for them to understand at some point, and I've corrected their attitudes when it's necessary, and so hopefully I've been able to put those things in their mind as well. But um, at this point, I think I'm kind of rambling on. I don't know what else to say, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And to my black brothers and sisters out there, fight on. Fight the fight, because you have my support. And I'm so sorry. And as I say at the end of all of my videos, be the revolution, because we need